Good night.
Despite fascinating and sometimes exhaustive studies, scientists don't know why we need to sleep. Only that it's do or die. Like breathing, it's a biological requirement for our species. We know, too, that those with sleep apnea actually stop breathing for 10 seconds or more many times an hour. Dr. Emmanuel Mignot.
And basically they choke during sleep multiple times every hour, and that fragments their sleeps and makes the oxygen drops, and fortunately it wakes you up, because otherwise you would probably die. Well, the most important symptoms are snoring and sleepiness. Then if someone is snoring loudly and also is tired during the day, there is about a 50% chance they have sleep apnea.
Dr. Mignot is an expert in sleep disorders, and after decades of research,
we discovered a gene that seemed to predispose to sleep apnea. If people have a certain variant, they have an increased risk of sleep apnea, about 2 to 5 times more risk of having sleep apnea.
The gene, called APOE, was already linked to high blood pressure, heart disease, and Alzheimer's disease.
This APOE factor has 3 variants, and one of them is called APOE4, is the one that predisposes to both higher cholesterol, Alzheimer's disease, and sleep apnea. What is very significant is about 13% of the population has this APOE4 variant. Then it's an enormous amount of the general population that has this genetic predisposing factor. Then we know that people that have this genetic factor, APOE4, have the tendency of developing small lesions in the brain, which sometimes even lead to Alzheimer's disease. Then what I believe is that these people that develop lesion also develop small lesion in the area of the brain that regulates your breathing during sleep, and consequently they have a problem fine-tuning how they breathe during sleep, and that's why they develop sleep apnea.
Mignot's research team and others found the genetic connection by monitoring and studying the blood tests and sleep breathing patterns of nearly 800 middle-aged adults.
Oh, I'm very excited by the finding because it's opening new directions of research for sleep apnea. And one of the most exciting is, of course, trying to understand how the brain regulates breathing, maybe helping to prevent sleep apnea in some cases. And finally, a very important consequences is also trying to understand how sleep apnea interacts with the other diseases that this genetic factor predisposes to, namely Alzheimer's disease and cardiovascular problems.
His research continues at an accelerated pace.
Sleep apnea is a very serious condition, and there are millions of people out there that have severe sleep apnea and that are untreated and are at risk for cardiovascular problems. And it's very clear that general practitioners are increasingly aware about sleep apnea, but still don't ask enough questions about sleep problems. More research needs to be done in sleep apnea, and that we need to see more patients being treated, because that will improve the life of a lot of people.
The genetic findings just hint at the complex interactions between breathing patterns, sleep disorders, and mental health.